Hello and welcome to the Q&A for Inspiring Tales, another Q&A program for the 2023 San Francisco Independent Short Film Festival. Thank you for being here. And we have some great filmmakers here with us today. Hey, filmmakers.
Hello.
I
Hi.
believe we're all representing San Francisco. I'm Jason Wallace, the programmer for the Shorts Film Festival. Where are you guys calling in from? What neighborhoods?
I'm in the Mission District in San Francisco, and I was in Finding Hetch Hetchy, one of the short films.
Excellent. Grace, how about you?
I'm in Hayes Valley in San Francisco, and I made Beyond the Curve.
Fantastic. Good to have you here. Last but not least, Matthew.
Yep, I'm in Nob Hill in San Francisco, and I'm co-director of Developing Our Future.
Cool. So, Developing Our Future, wonderful little film, well made. What started the project? Why was it made?
It was made partly to raise awareness for that kind of program. So it's a summer program that are for high schoolers and college students to kind of learn about a new trait, if you will. And this specifically is about the real estate development program. And so we follow a group of students throughout the summer, and as they learn about real estate, kind of and how it impacts their community. So that's the kind of main goal for it, is to kind of spread awareness and hope that other businesses kind of pick up this way of doing things.
How did you get involved?
We got involved with the actual company called the PBV, Presidio Bay Ventures, that puts on this program. And so we chatted with them, and at first they wanted to do a little kind of trailer, and we were like, no, this needs to be a kind of longer film, and we want to tell the stories, follow a few of these young adults around, and kind of understand where they're coming from, and how this is impacting, their lives, and kind of opening their eyes to something that in high school and college generally you don't really get any exposure to the real estate program, what it means to to build from regular residential all the way to a huge 50-foot
Yeah, yeah,
skyscraper.
yeah. Don't get access to those programs in general, let alone a underrepresented community. Seems like a wonderful program. Um, uh, how about Lucho? Am I saying your name correctly?
Yeah, you are.
How did you, get started making this movie? Are you a climber? Forgive me if I can't remember. Are you a star in the movie?
I am. Yeah, I'm one of the climbers in the movie. Um, and the way I got started was I was contacted by Restore Hetch Hetchy, which is a nonprofit based out of Berkeley, California, which is just across the bay from me. I've been climbing for about 20 years, and a lot of that climbing has been done in Hetch Hetchy, which is another valley real close to Yosemite Valley, and it's actually in Yosemite National Park. Um, I'd been, like I said, been climbing out there for a number of years, and so the nonprofit Restore Hetch Hetchy had reached out to me about making this film. I really didn't have an idea about what the film was going to be about until we were actually making it. If it was going to be like a climbing flick, or if it was going to be more of an environmental flick, and I think the producers and the director melded it into a nice
Yeah, it
short
kind of
film
became
that
a
kind
little
of,
bit of both.
yeah, told a little bit of both of the
Yeah.
story, and has some nice shots and visuals, and
I'll say.
yeah. So that place to me is really special, and it same with the Restore Hetch Hetchy group. And so I think there was a lot of love that went into this project, just because I think it's a part of the national park, Yosemite National Park, that's somewhat neglected, and there's and being from San Francisco, a native, I've always been told that my water comes from Hetch Hetchy, and like I never really knew what that meant, until I started climbing out there. And then I realized that, there was this dam, but didn't put two and two together that it was in our national park, and that was an issue until much later. And so, what and then I joined the Restore Hetch Hetchy as a board member about 2 years ago after we had made the film. And since then, I've learned a lot about water storage and water and power, and how San Francisco has this stronghold over a small little section of one of our national parks. And
Yeah.
and so all that really kind of motivates me to kind of spread the word more about Hetch Hetchy, get people interested in the area, and hopefully one day get rid of that dam and restore the valley is our ultimate goal. So
Right on. Yeah, like you being in San Francisco, hear about it a little bit, but no any more information than like you did before. That just water comes from Hetch Hetchy,
yeah.
and that we need to preserve it and restore it and all that other things.
Yeah.
Grace, to you, same thing. What inspired you to make this movie?
Yeah, well, this is actually a very personal story because I've struggled with mental health issues and particularly in college. And I was also in engineering in undergrad, and all of those kind of factors pushed me to make this film because I realized that I wasn't the only one who was struggling. I kind of felt that other people were struggling, but I didn't really have the words to understand what I was going through. It was only until like my senior year of college that I kind of had the words of anxiety and depression. And I know that a lot of people were also, struggling, but not being able to talk about it. And as I kind of looked into this more, I realized that STEM, so like science, engineering, technology, math, like that kind of area was really where it was kind of hit the hardest because the way the environment is kind of a little bit toxic. It's like, meant to like weed people out and only have like the strongest and the best to like survive the course. But then that kind of doesn't really take into account like other students who might not be able to like do well on these really intensive exams, but then like that doesn't mean that they're not going to be like good scientists or good,
Right. If I remember a line that stood out, like the one professor, really eloquent professor, says this. I think he says not based on ability or something like that, right? Which is crazy.
Yeah. So it's kind of these like really antiquated like teaching methods. And it's not just that it doesn't let people become scientists and like major in STEM, it also like really impacts their mental health. And so like I experienced it and I know that I wasn't the only one and it particularly impacts, women and students of color and people who are, not the um people who have been privileged in STEM before. So that's kind of what inspired me to make this story because people were not talking about it and they weren't talking about how the university itself was like contributing to the mental health crisis and people not being able to major in STEM.
Yeah. Interesting. There's a little bit of a theme here. Maybe I'm making it up and connecting your films together, but all three of you have, like, if you will, although Yosemite or Hetch Hetchy is a place, it's kind of like places that aren't being heard or voices that aren't being heard or are underrepresented or not being shared. And so you guys are giving a voice to these causes, these people. Matthew, talk about that. I guess it was really nice to see all these young minority kids getting access to kind of a very privileged white industry.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think that's one of the things that drew us to us and really made the project even more interesting is right. It is a white male dominated industry, and having these underrepresented kids from lower income neighborhoods in San Francisco kind of go through this and again how it can shift their perspective of community and what their neighborhoods look like and how they in the future potentially can have a say in it if they decide to go in this kind of route. But yeah, we also made sure to we wanted to tell their story and share their story where they were coming from and try and get that as meaningful and positive as possible.
So that was the sweet part of your film, if you will. Not only that's in our backyard in San Francisco, but that these kids, you can see almost like a light bulb going off. I think some of them say like now they're considering going into real estate, where before I don't even know if they even thought of it as a possibility.
Right, exactly. It's just something that feels so out of reach to these kids that I think we've probably all been there. We're trying to decide what to do with our lives when you're in high school, and I'm older, so for me there wasn't as many opportunities, and just being there, we were there for like 3 months shooting 3 days a week, and kind of also being in the classes almost pretty much myself, being like, whoa, well, I didn't
Right,
know any
right,
of this. This is cool. Like, I wish I would have known this 20 years ago. Probably wouldn't
right.
have gone into real estate, but it's still the idea of giving them access to something like this is really what was really important.
Yeah, well, and also how they can have a say in the development of their community, like because you had, construction guys, you had city planners, you had, not just developers. That access is fantastic.
Yeah, it was, I mean, really eye-opening to be able for them to talk to everybody that's part of the process of building a building, right? It wasn't just like, hey, we're going to chat with the architects and you can make this fake building. It's like, no, 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 yeah, you got to talk to city planners. What are they going to say? They don't
So
want you to do this.
yeah, I think I remember like they were part of an actual real project, right?
Yeah,
What
it was
what?
part of a it was part of an upcoming project in the dog patch. And they got that's underway now,
Uh,
but they got to we went and visited the site, went to go see what it's like now and what they got to that's where they came up with the idea for their building and what it's looked like, and then got to talk to the architects, construction, city planners, all that to get that back and forth and really understanding what the process is all about.
Fantastic. And how did they get accepted? These kids, how did they get to be part of the program?
So from last year when we shot it, it was through a program called Operation Genesis that does this kind of thing, but is in underprivileged neighborhoods, and usually is like after school programs or just kind of stuff to keep kids off the street, mentorship programs, that kind of stuff. And so they helped Presidio Bay kind of find a group of 20 students, like I said, somewhere in high school, somewhere in college, uh, that felt that would benefit from this program, that
Right.
the summer program.
And Grace, same kind of question to you as far as access to your subjects. How did you get that access, that trust? I mean, it's pretty intimate. I think I remember you're in the classrooms next to the kids, you're in the dorm rooms. You know, how was that process?
Yeah, oh my gosh, I interviewed like dozens of students. I think part of it was to kind of understand more of what they were going through that was different from my own experience. But also, yeah, I was trying to find the right people, and I was trying to find people who were, willing to be in a documentary, which is really hard, especially for like younger people. I mean, especially, they're in college, they have like these intense schedules, and they're struggling with mental health issues. Like, why would you have time to be part of a documentary? Um, so it was kind of a lot of like searching and like talking to people. And I think I eventually, was able to find, Brooke and Mara, who really, kind of show both sides of it. And I think um just, talking to them one on one, and not, forcing the documentary onto them right away, and just kind of explaining where I was coming from, and really I also did this training for like to be on a like support line for people experiencing domestic violence, and that really taught me a lot of listening skills. And obviously it's not therapy, but I think it really helps to support and be able to talk about mental health and understand like what people kind of need when they're talking about it. So I think that really helped develop trust, and to really involve them in the process and be like, hey, like this is what's happening, like are you okay with this? um yeah,
Yeah,
and just I think also having personal experience myself is helpful.
sure, sure. You can kind of relate and talk, if you will. How long did it take to get to a point of that comfort? Like, how long was the shoot? So, to get kind of into their space where they were, you know, generous with their selves. How long did it take?
um it depends on the people. So I found Brooke first, so I kind of had a little bit more time with her to talk to her more and be in her space a little bit more. And then I found Mara a little later, so I didn't have as much time with her. Um, but I think like we were able to kind of connect a little bit more intensely, I guess. And so for Brooke, it was maybe like I found her a month before, and then Mara, I think yeah, we had like a couple weeks together, which is really not a long time. Like
No.
in a better world, I would have really spent more time with her and like, developed a better relationship. because of the timeline, I was in grad school when I was making this, so I kind of had like a time limit.
Yeah.
So
What
it was
was your
kind of
time
like
limit? So how long was the whole project? What was your time limit?
it was honestly like 3 months,
Wow, that's quick.
3 to 4 months. Yeah, so
Good.
a pretty tight schedule. And so I was like editing as I was like meeting Mara and like all of those things. So it was a pretty like intense moment.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I had my own mental health struggle.
Yeah, yeah, you put some pressure on yourself right there for sure.
Yeah.
Well, you captured some intimacy really well. Lucho, uh, how do you develop the trust to film while climbing on those amazing locations? I mean, a little bit nerve-wracking just watching. How was it for you?
Um, I had been on
And you've
that
been a climber
particular.
for a long time, so you're a pro, but
Well,
and it pays off for the audience, but
I
crazy.
think I had been on that particular climb a lot, so I felt pretty comfortable on it. And the whole team, the whole crew, were old friends from Yosemite. Everyone from the director to the cameraman to even the people rigging the ropes in the beginning. My wife helped me with that. She's a climber as well, so we it was a pretty tight knit group already. That went up there, put the ropes up for the camera folks, and then and so yeah, it
I
was a
imagine you probably couldn't do it without that tightness, without a group that's already worked together in that kind of situation. It looks dangerous.
I think it's a lot harder to do that and to feel at ease for sure. And and I think uh, they're all pros. All the camera folks are pros. They're just like, go climb and do your thing. We'll get the shots. Don't worry about it, and I haven't done any other climbing films, but I have like been photographed and stuff like that. And it's always kind of the same thing. I think the photographer is just like, pretend I'm not here and kind of do your thing. And that's kind of how, I mean, they're climbers as well, so they understand that. You just kind of want to be focused um, and all that. I mean, yeah, it was more fun and not so scary because I guess yeah, we're all kind of used to it.
Right. Yeah, well, and it's just a beautiful film to watch with, positions and angles that most audiences will never view firsthand. So that's a great payoff for us. Um, in addition to just the natural, challenges involved with climbing, were there any unusual challenges for your film?
Um, Not so much. No, I don't think so. That um Hetch Hetchy itself is kind of run by the Department of Water, the San Francisco Department of Water and Power in San Francisco. So um that whole area, that reservoir is kind of managed by the National Park System, Yosemite, and by the SFPUC. I think there's been a lot of progress with our organization in asking about gate hours, about more access. As it stands now, there's no camping at the dam, but they've kind of relaxed those rules a little bit. They've also relaxed the gate hours from actual number hours, like 8 to 5, for example. It was for a long time to just saying sunset and sunrise. I feel like the National Park Service, Yosemite, is listening to us. It's a little harder to get to the SFPUC because I think they just don't really realize what they're doing is all that wrong still, and by having water stored in one of our national parks. And I think the National Park Service, from my perspective, seems to understand that it's probably not a good thing and that we could benefit more in our national park system by removing the dam and restoring that valley and kind of spreading out a lot of that traffic that ends up in Yosemite during the summertime in Yosemite Valley could be spread out to other parts of the park, like Hetch Hetchy. So there's definitely reasons why I think the Park Service and our organization Restore Hetch Hetchy has been working together and becoming closer. But it's really hard to reach the SFPUC.
Yeah.
I think that's been the biggest struggle even before the film, and during the film. I don't even think they were really aware that we were out there filming or anything like that. So
Right, right. Why do you think it's necessary? And this might seem like an obvious question, but I just want to hear it in your own words to restore Hetch Hetchy. Like, what's the benefits?
I think the benefit is to bring back a part of our national park system that was supposed to be preserved for all time. And because of some politics, that water that could have easily been stored downriver outside of our national park was dammed up in our national park. So basically, they reversed a Wilderness Act, and it's the first time that that has ever happened. The first and only time that that has ever happened, where part of our national park was preserved for everyone's sake, and then the city of San Francisco and the government came in, the federal government came in and were like, well, San Francisco needs water because they had this massive earthquake. And, you know, if they have another one, we're going to need all this extra water. And that wasn't really the case, but that was one of the excuses that they used after the 1906 quake. It had been in the works, and they had been trying to do this for a number of years, like 20 years or over a decade. And they kept getting shut down. And because of the 1906 quake, they used it as a reason to, they're like, well, look, San Francisco didn't have any water to fight these fires, but that wasn't the case. A lot of us know that, you know, the pipes burst, the water just couldn't get to the firefighters, and that's the biggest reason why the city burned. But you know, people that didn't really know that back then were just kind of like, oh yeah, you know, we do need more water storage. I mean, the city was also growing, and I think the politicians in San Francisco were kind of scrounging around the Sierra to see where they could build reservoirs and get water for these growing cities
Right.
along the coastline. And yeah, so I mean, I
Different.
think that yeah, that's been a big challenge, is kind of working together with the water department.
Thank you for that answer. Grace, did you have any challenges other than you know, academic deadlines and workload?
Yeah, I mean, I think that was the big one. Also, the past project that I worked on was in pairs, so I had someone to kind of rely on and like support me with the project. So, but this one I was alone, so I think that was also challenging. And the last project I had done was one person in one place. So it was pretty like straightforward, but this one was like, you know, managing like two college students and like a professor and like trying to film in these spaces that are, you know, actually it was okay because it's like a public university, so I think it's like fine. But it was really just like juggling the three storylines and like also figuring out, because the timeline was so tight, I was like developing the story as I was making it, so that was also challenging. So yeah, and then doing all of that myself, and like I was like filming while editing, while, you know, finding people. So
And this
yeah.
is part of the journalism program at.
Yeah. So it was part of the UC Berkeley's graduate journalism program, master's. Yeah.
Well done. Congrats on getting it finished.
Yeah.
Matthew, any filmmaking challenges or other challenges for you?
I mean, a little bit. I think obviously kind of similar to you, Grace, the location. We were in a, you know, in classrooms and with this group of students that, you know, you try to be a fly on the wall, but you've got two cameras and standing there with a boom pole and kind of getting in the way. And then, but I think, you know what, like I said, we would shoot mostly 3 days a week for at least 4 to 8 hours. And the first few weeks, we didn't know who our main characters were going to be. So we kind of just had to cover our bases, and we started slowly talking to some of the students, you know, realizing some of them just didn't want to be on camera. Right. And not only do we need to start following the right students, but also get their story and, you know, make sure their stories are I guess, intriguing enough for us to kind of follow. And thankfully, you know, a few weeks in, we sat down, we interviewed 3 or 4 of the students and kind of knew who our main characters were going to be, and so started really following them and how they were progressing in the program.
Well, let's do one more question. Matthew, I'm on you. What's something you hope audiences take away from watching your movie, or something you hope they feel or learn from your movie?
Yeah, I mean, I think the main takeaway for me is is understanding those challenges that underprivileged students, kids, people, everyone coming from, you know, lower income neighborhoods are struggling to find a way out of there, right? They don't have the amount of opportunity that other people do, that they don't get introduced to as many other things. And so I think that's just part one, is like, you know, understanding that, realizing it, and hopefully, you know, encouraging people to, if they have the opportunity to volunteer or do something similar in their field, like that, introduce it. And that's kind of, it is that the idea that keeps going here is we want this to spread, to do other programs, to other, you know, lines of work.
Right on. Thank you for that. Grace, how about you? What's something you want audiences to take away after watching your movie?
I think I have like sort of two areas. I think for college students watching it, it's kind of for them to, you know, have something that they can relate to and have their experience like seen on screen. Because when I was, you know, in college, like no one was talking about this. So that's important. And then on the other hand is, you know, professors and like people in the college environment, or even just, you know, people who have kids who are in college. I think just understanding like how much pressure students are under right now, and that it's not, you know, just in our heads, and that, you know, we're not like weak students or whatever, and that it's like actually these systems in place that are, you know, undermining like certain students. Yeah.
Cool. Yep. And Lucho, audiences, what do you want them to feel? Take away.
I think more than anything, I just want this film to make people aware that there is this other valley that's real close to Yosemite Valley that they can go and visit, and there's great backpacking there, and you know, I think, and there's incredible climbing, and pretty much if you're a climber, you're gonna always be the only climber there, because it's so less accessible than Yosemite Valley. So I think our film is just kind of intended to make people aware that there is this reservoir in one of our national parks, and that it probably shouldn't be there, and that hopefully one day we can get it out of there, you know. And you know, I think anyone who goes to Hetch Hetchy kind of feels this awe that they feel in Yosemite Valley. You know, there's these giant granite walls and these massive waterfalls and stuff like that. So it's really hard not to fall in love with the place if you're local, or if you visit it or anything like that. So I just encourage people to go check it out.
Right on. And I encourage people to check out your movies, all three of you. Wonderful films. And they can do so at our film festival at sfindie.com. Well, hey, filmmakers, congratulations on not only getting into our film festival, but just completing your films, because I know how hard it is to make movies. So well done.
Thank you.
And look forward to meeting you in person. All right, that's all the time we have, everybody. Thank you for watching another Q&A program for the 2023 San Francisco Short Film Festival. Support more indie films at sfindie.com. All right, filmmakers, good to meet you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.